It's time to wind the bobbin and thread the machine. If you are using thread that goes on the spool horizontally, you will need to use the vertical spool pin. If you are using thread that goes on the spool in these X shapes, sometimes easier to see on a red color, you will use the horizontal spool pin. Now it's time to wind the bobbin. Sewing machines have a top thread and a bottom thread, which is called the bobbin thread. And that little clear spool is a bobbin. We're going to put our thread onto there, and then it will go into the bottom of the machine. First, place your thread onto the appropriate spool pin, and then add a spool cap if you're using the horizontal pin. Now we're going to move our thread around the pathway marked by the dotted lines. This part here is the tensioner, and it will make sure that your thread goes on your bobbin smoothly. Now take the end of your thread and put it through the small hole in the bobbin, and then place your bobbin on the bobbin winding pin. Now we press that pin to the side, you'll hear a little click, and it is engaged and ready for us to wind our bobbin. To start winding your bobbin, press the start and stop button at the front of the machine or use your foot pedal. After winding a small amount of thread, stop and then trim that end so it doesn't get caught in your bobbin. Now start your bobbin again and fill it up. You are more likely to get a perfectly wound bobbin by using a moderate to slow speed. So this is a great time to drop your machine down to a slower speed so that you can get that perfectly wound bobbin. The bobbin is very important in the whole sewing process. Right next to your bobbin being wound is a small piece of plastic. It's kind of an oblong shape, and it's used to stop the bobbin when it gets full. It will first slow it down, and then it will stop it all the way. So watch out for when your bobbin starts to stutter. That's a good time to turn it off by pushing it to the left. Now you're going to trim your thread and pull your bobbin straight off. Now we're going to put the bobbin in. To open up the case, we pull this, and then the little clear door pops upward. We do need to have our presser foot up in order to get this door off. Our bobbin thread should look like a P. So here's the round part of the P and the line off of the other edge. If it was this way, it would look like a Q. And we need P for perfect. I'm going to drop the bobbin down into this area, and then I take my long tail here and I'm going to thread it around this pathway. You can see these arrows to get up, and I like to put my finger right on top of the bobbin to hold a little bit more still. When we get to this last spot here, it's actually a little cut off, so just pull quickly and it will cut it right off for you. Your bobbin has been inserted properly. Now you put the clear door back on and you're ready to sew. When you're ready to take your bobbin out, you slide your finger along this area and pull it out. Then you can put a new one in or fill this one up. Again, it looks like a P. You drop it down in here. You take the end of your thread and you pull it around this obstacle course. The last spot at the bottom here is a cutter. You just cut it off, put the clear window back on, and you're ready to go. Time to thread the machine. I'm going to put this turquoise blue on top so that we can see the difference between our two threads when we're looking at our stitch out. My thread is on and my spool cap, but I have to check two things before I go any farther. One, my needle has to be all the way up, so I can press the needle up, needle down button to make sure that this is completely in the upright position. The other thing is that my presser foot has to be up. So reach your hand underneath to make sure your presser foot is up. This is down, this is up. Your presser foot must be up in order for the machine to be threaded properly. So now we can continue threading the machine. First, our thread goes under this hook, around the back, it comes down to the front. At the front, it goes around here. That's number 4. Comes straight up and goes around here. That's number 5. Then goes straight back down again. Down. This is 6. That is this bar right here. And 7 is the front of the top of the needle. I think about it as the front of the needle because it's just in front of the needle. There we go. And lastly is our needle. You can, of course, thread it the old-fashioned way by clipping the end of your thread and going straight from the front to the back. But this machine does come with an automatic needle threader.
For the needle threader to work, your needle needs to be in its highest position. If it's not there currently, make sure to move it all the way up.
So I'm going to drop the presser foot just to give me some more room here. Needle threader is going to go down and clicks into place. Then I put my finger behind it just to make sure everything's aligned. Then I'm going to take my thread here, goes underneath this hook, and then this is also a little hook. It goes underneath. Then I lift up my thread. I can catch it on that thread cutter on that side.
Then I push upward on the needle threader handle to pull through a small loop. I grab it, pull it through, and then I am ready to sew. The accurate threading of the sewing machine is incredibly important. If it's not threaded right, it's just not going to make a beautiful stitch. It may not make stitches at all. And because of that, I ask you to take your time, go slowly, and if you run into any problems with your stitch out, unthread the machine completely, top and bottom, and try again. When I run into problems, it's exactly what I do. It's super easy to manage to flip your bobbin over when you're putting it in, or to have your thread be caught on the spool. If you ever feel lost or confused, just go back in the video or get out the manual. Threading the machine is so important that you should take your time figuring it out. Also, because it's done so often, I suggest you get really comfortable with it. Take your time, thread the machine up, try a couple stitches, unthread it, change colors, keep doing it over and over again. And after the 4th or 5th time, it will start to become pretty easy. And then you won't mind changing your thread at all. And when your needle becomes unthreaded, you'll be a master at using that automatic needle threader or just doing it the old-fashioned way. You might be wondering, why are we putting regular thread on the machine and a regular bobbin? Doesn't machine embroidery use like special thread? It does, yeah, absolutely. But there's a reason I'm having you do it this way. Learning how to thread the machine and put in the bobbin is so important that I want to make sure you can do it. And I want to make sure you can do it correctly. And the best way to know that is to be able to make some stitches. The stitches will tell us if something is wrong, and it's super easy to do that in the regular machine mode. So let's make a stitch out. I am using just 2 pieces of plain muslin here, quilter's cotton, and we're going to see how it stitches out. So I start with my needle up, then I put my presser foot down, and now I'm going to sew. You can either use the button there, or you can use your foot pedal. And remember, you can change the speed to how quick you feel comfortable sewing. When you get to the end, you can press the cutting feature if you'd like, and lift your presser foot so you can see your very first stitches. Right over here, we have a little bit of the thread tails. You don't have to worry about that. And I used 2 different colors of thread so that we can evaluate how well our machine's tension is set. When we look at the back here, we have a pink line and we have tiny little dots of blue. When we look on this side, we have a blue line with tiny little dots of pink, which means this is perfect. And we have everything on the machine set correctly. If anything goes wrong while you're stitching, the first thing to do is always rethread your machine. Now that we have a beautiful stitch out here, let's try some of the other stitches
and learn how to adjust this. Over here we have the width, length, and tension. I'm going to press this button to select between them. That is the width setting, but since I'm doing a straight stitch, it doesn't apply here. This is the length setting. I can start at 2.5, which is what I was already doing, and then I can make it very big, or I can make it very small. You noticed it blinked right there? That's telling me that I've returned to the optimal setting or the factory setting for that selection. 0 means it's going to go just in one spot. So let's bump it up just the tiniest little bit and see some really tiny stitches. So it went from a normal stitch to a very long stitch length and then almost tiny, tiny, tiny stitches. Now let's change to another stitch type. Select regular stitches or functional stitches, which are things like straight stitch and zigzag, or the faux serger edge, different buttonholes, and a few decorative stitches. The star function has even more decorative stitches. So I'm gonna select that, which is on number 1 right now, and I can use the guide down below to tell me what each one is. To get to another number, we're just going to press the up button or the down button. Number 2 moves the needle to the left side. Number 3 is a triple stitch. Number 4 is a lightning bolt, which is great for knit fabric. But we're going to go to number 6, which is a zigzag. On number 6, we can adjust the width and the length. This is the tension, which we don't need to adjust at all right now. So here is the zigzag, and it can go pretty wide at a 7. And then we can take it all the way down. Can we go any farther? We can go all the way to a 0, which, if you're aware, a 0 is a straight stitch. Let's check it out. Oh, regular, wide, narrow, and straight stitch. You can also change the length, which will bring it closer together. So if I were to select the standard width, and then I'm going to use my selector button here to adjust the length. I'm going to reduce my length till it's pretty small, and that will get me something like that. It's not quite a satin stitch. You would have to do much closer to get that. When you are doing a wide zigzag, you may notice that the top thread comes down to the bottom a little bit. That's not really a problem, but you can certainly adjust it a little if you want. Decorative stitches generally have it so that the top thread goes to the bottom just the tiniest bit, so that there's no chance of the bobbin thread showing on top of your project. If you're having any problems with the way your stitch out looks while you're in regular machine mode, it's important to solve them before you move to the embroidery mode. 95% of the time, rethreading your machine fixes the problem. So take your thread out from the top and the bottom and make sure you're rethreading properly with the presser foot up and the needle in the top position.